call the meeting to order. Okay. We have public comment on our agenda as our first item.
Am I the only one? I would just like to comment about one species
Can you
of
say your name, please?
tree. Oh,
Name and address, please.
Vince Bolek, 1138 Belmont Avenue. I'd just like to comment about one species of tree that's in Wyomissing. It's the mountain silver bells, and they're eyesores. I've had one on Fairview. I have a Belmont Avenue address, but Fairview's my backyard. And every year when they trim it, it's been about 5 years now, it just gets uglier and uglier. And it's a scrawny, ugly tree, and it's misshapen, and the tree experts can't do it. I mean, they come by and do their thing every year, and they just get worse looking and worse looking. So, I mean, I'd like to request that all of them in Wyomissing get replaced. But I wanted to go on record as to how
What-
ugly this particular tree is.
What is your address again?
1138 Belmont. But on Fairview in my back,
Yeah.
there's mine and a neighbor has a couple.
There's not many.
But they're bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it for public comment? I guess, okay. We have a new assistant public works director, and Michelle, are you going to do the introductions?
Sure, great. Greg Capriola is our new Assistant Public Works Director. He stepped into the position officially on February 15th, so he's coming up on 90 days into the job. I'm sure Jim can speak a lot better than I can as to kind of where the first 2.5 months have taken him, but one of his immediate responsibilities is kind of overtaking oversight of the Parks Department to get that off of Jim's plate. Previously Jim was responsible for parks and maintenance as a whole, so this is more of a 50-50 split, and then long-term, Greg is gonna shadow Jim to learn the overall public works position as well. So Jim, do you wanna add anything?
That's about it. Greg is dealing more with the day-to-day operations with the guys and what happens on a daily basis, with forward-looking to start to learn over a few years the utility, the water sewer utilities and things like that. So it's a long-range plan, and he's doing a great job.
Excellent.
Well,
Why don't we all introduce ourselves so that you know who you're, or unless
Yeah,
you know
no, that would be
everybody
good
else at the
because I
table
see
except
people
for
and
me.
I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, I'm Catherine Lentz, and I have lived in Wyomissing for 17-ish years. And I took over as the chair of this committee at the beginning of this week, I forget when, beginning of this year, yeah. And I'm glad to have you. Do you know everyone else?
I'm Jen Reimer. I've been in the Hills for about 18 years now, and I joined the committee just a few months ago, late last year.
And she's also on infrastructure, which is why she probably looks familiar.
Yeah. I sit in on a lot of meetings too.
Fred Vogel, I live in Girard Avenue, a council member.
Jana Barnett, council member, Board of Lake and Cleveland, since '94.
I'm Barbara Reister. I met you on Earth Day,
yes.
and I've lived here all my life, so do Fred Noble.
Life first.
Try as you may to get out, huh?
Right.
Well, it really is good to have you, and I am anxious to hear any way that you think that this committee could be helpful to you
Okay.
moving forward. I'd like for our committee to be more involved publicly in the borough.
Okay.
You working on the request for proposal?
I wasn't gonna finalize that or even really start it until I was gonna bring that up under old business, but I guess we could jump ahead since you brought it up. So you should all be aware, maybe not Jen, cause this was an old business conversation from last year. The borough has authorized a RFP being put out for a master plan study of the parklands. My intent is to finalize that RFP this summer, put it out to bid, likely early fall, and then have the consultant start. I wanted Greg to more than get his feet wet before we start that process, so he's not inundated with the stuff Jim wanted him to take on immediately, and then try and work with that consultant, cause there's gonna be a lot of dialogue back and forth with that consultant and staff. I would think potentially with Park and Shade Tree Commission, maybe a little bit infrastructure to kinda understand the big picture and how the parklands fit into the overall borough. And then the other piece to that is, once we have that master plan, implementing it over the course of, I would think, a 5 or 10 year period, depending on the decisions made by this commission, likely again, infrastructure, finance, and council. So, with that said, Catherine and I had a conversation on Monday. There's general comments she gets, the borough gets, borough staff get, as to, well, what about this in the parklands, what about that in the parklands? I, at this point, would respectfully request we table any discussion on those items till we have that study performed and have a chance to fully discuss and digest it, because there's no point doing something or replacing something or removing something if the consultant comes back and recommends the opposite. To me, that's just a waste of staff time and money. So if everybody could just be a little bit patient for maybe like the next 12 months till we get there, then we'll have a blueprint kind of in front of us as to where to go.
Can you just quickly tell us what is, if someone calls into the borough with a comment or a question, what is the steps that happen? So somebody answers the phone and listens to what a resident says.
Yeah, then we either go to Michelle or me at this point.
And it's, are they calling about deer, are they calling about a tree, are they calling about a bee's nest, are they calling about, I just don't like the way something looks, or I think you should do X. One of us typically gets that call. And if it's something I need to talk to Jim or Greg to get information on before I respond, then I do so. Sometimes it goes the opposite way. But it's, if it's something we know the answer to, deer have been very popular. Like, at this point, the borough has not made any decision to cull the herd other than to encourage private property owners to allow hunting if they choose to do so on their property. Things like that.
And then Greg, how do you, then one of you would communicate to Greg if it was a park specific issue, right?
Yeah.
And then you would in turn have a team meeting with some guys that work in the park, or send an email, or?
Yeah, depending on what the issue is. At this point, I took a call today about the poison hemlock and talked to the guy and stuff. So it depends on what it is. I'll take it to Jim, or I'll take it to Michelle, and then if it needs to go out to the parkland guys, we'll address it out there too.
Just trying to understand the process. Okay, tree disease and insects.
Mark could not make it today, but he wrote me up a list.
Thank you.
Do you have one?
I have electronically.
Okay, so pruning, total of 500 trees for deadwood elevation, things like that. Some they have a training list for the younger trees, they have a list that they try to get to, I forget the rotation, it's every 3 years, or 5 years, to make sure when it matures, it's gonna mature in a strong way without split leaves or anything. So that was a lot of these. Then they also prune for deadwood and elevation. Of those, 48 were residents' requests. They get calls every day over there for residents looking for some sort of tree work, and we cleared 48 of those. They removed 34 trees in-house and around 48 stumps. We've put out 2 contracts so far for contracted removal. Moonlight Tree was low bidder on both of those, and he does a great job. The first one was really focused on a lot of dead ash in the parkland. Most of our removal money goes to street trees, but the ash situation is becoming so dire that we put a lot of money from the contractor takedowns into dead ash trees and trying to do ones that Mark deemed most dangerous because they're how close they were to trails and people, as opposed to ones that are just out in the woods. Let's see here. Trees, group works right there, so mill. The contractor in now is all street trees, but then we'll be putting out another one in the next month or so. That again will be mostly ash trees, so there'll be two cycles of ash tree removal in the parkland, which, like I said, is highly unusual. I've also took a few trees down in front of the Wyomissing Park Apartments, some of the linden over there that were issues with the hardscaping they're installing over there. Planted 67 trees this spring, will be approximately 60 more in the fall. The emerald ash borer, with the parkland, it's a problem with the street trees. They're on a 3-year rotation of injecting the tree, and I don't know the name of the herbicide or insecticide, but they inject any street tree ash with this chemical, and so far so good. I think we're in year number 3 or 4 of that. And not that we don't lose a few from time to time, but it works, this chemical. So a lot on obviously all of Garfield, mostly ash, portions of meadowlark, mostly ash, but it's a great success. Lanternfly has not been an issue at all. That's done. It's a nuisance for some people here and there, but there's no concern about ours as far as.
They love the river birch trees, I'll tell you that.
River birch,
I have
red
one right
maple.
in front of my house.
It's a nuisance, but it's not detrimental.
Why are we planting river birches as street trees?
Because Mark is trying to diversify, because we do have problems like with ash tree, you get a specific,
Yeah.
and we were having some anthracnose, was it, on red oak years ago? So the more we diversify our trees, the less disease becomes a big problem. That's the reason.
I just don't like them as street trees,
Yeah.
they're just, they're not good street trees. But
And Greg had mentioned, not tree related, but the new spawn is this poison hemlock. It's becoming a problem. We get a lot of phone calls about it. I was just on the swale below Logan Avenue today, and it's everywhere. And it's gonna take a lot of labor to spray it and kill it. From what I understand, when you mow it, it gets up in the air, it can hurt your lungs if you touch it. It can be like worse than poison ivy, you know. I don't know I don't know the history of it, where it came from, but it's a problem.
So what's the current thought on how to?
Right now, we're just spraying it with weed killer, you know. I don't know.
Is it something that the borough might want to, like, would it, if it came, that you could put out a public service announcement, if you see it in your yard, you should, or could?
We could.
We could, to be honest with you. People don't like a lot of what we publish, whether it's the newsletter, whether it's news and notices on the website, whether it's email blasts, whether it's inserts or, you know, highlighted brightly colored paper that's part of a utility bill.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can certainly try.
But you're taking a bunch of calls right now about it?
Mostly people that walk into Parkland, not from residents. And there's a number of smart people who love plants and things that know enough about grasses and weeds and natural trees and plants that they bring it to our attention. you know, where it's at, where they see it.
Does it look like a poison leaf?
Doesn't look like hemlock at all, no.
Is it a grassy looking thing?
It looks like to me, it looks like a carrot, like if you plant a carrot, the leaf looks something like that. Yeah, it's very basic looking.
Until you touch it.
Can you go on the internet? Poison hemlock.
Jim, when you find new trees, I know you can't guarantee the one planted from our house last year is dead.
Yeah.
If it's dead, Mark will address it. I don't know if it'll take him the next, chances are replacing it within the year, no.
I didn't know
One
whether,
in-
when you buy
that's-
trees, there's a
like,
guarantee
looks
it's
like
going to
that's the
live.
starter.
It
starts off-
If it were to die within a couple months, yeah.
And then it'll grow.
I used to be in the nursery business and I always said, you know, plants are like people, some die young, some die old. Unless we have, the only time we've really gone after a vendor is if we bought 10 or 20 of the same variety and all 10 or 20 died, then we would go back to the vendor. If one or two of different species die, it's price of doing business.
No, I'm not gonna touch poison hemlock.
Don't breathe it.
Yeah. That's it for trees.
Yeah, yeah.
One other question regarding trees in the park specifically, if one comes across a tree that has fallen, what is your preferred method to hear about it?
Phone call. Chances are you'll know about it anyway, but if you see a tree that's down in the woods, don't bother. But if it's across a trail, yeah, you can call.
Okay.
But the best thing, and a really good description, because we get many calls and people try to describe the location of something, and it's hard
Yeah.
because it's not a street intersection. So the best description of area they can give, we get to give.
Who's gonna get to discuss spring and summer plans?
We'll talk about that as far as the park. The tree guys, it's the same thing, they'll be pruning and removing trees. As far as the park guys go, most of that becomes mowing.
Not the new tractor.
And here's another success story. We spent a lot of money on a new, larger tractor than what we have normally used. And when Dwayne was cutting the field behind the barn for the first time this year, he claims he did in 2 or 3 days
About 3 weeks worth of work.
what last year would have taken him 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Worth it.
yeah, yeah. And we also have an arm attachment with it, as the other tractor did. And this one has far more reach, so like places, like along Penn Avenue where there's a guide rail and stuff, he could only get a couple feet behind the guide rail, now he'll be able to push stuff back further. Yeah. So it was an expensive but good investment, yeah.
Is there a plan to continue removing, there was some discussion of removing the fence, like the blinds?
Bollards in the guardrail, the brown wood and rotting.
Well, it's going around the Highlands parking lot
Yeah.
on both sides, that's gone.
Yes. They
But are you
removed-
talking about along the road to the barn?
That was,
Just every now and then, there's some that's deteriorating, and I know it was in the
It's
works to get rid
it's
of.
a maintenance problem. We just purchased some and, some lumber, and we just put in an order for 6x8 posts. And, we removed the ones at the Highlands parking lot. We replaced some cross rails at the Berkshire Heights Playground. They replaced the wooden railing at Evans, on the one side of Evans and Old Mill. It's ongoing. They rot, we replace. And I really think in some places we need to stop doing that and try to use, like at the Stonehouse tennis courts, that metal guy. It's expensive to put in, but it's metal and it rusts. It's supposed to rust. and look a little more natural, but in some instances, so it's not such a maintenance problem.
Well,
we need to do more.
the intent of this committee was from Bruce Bridge all the way to the park barn, where that brown,
Right, on the
that,
left side.
that all can come out and stay out. Jim McCarthy already
Oh,
confirmed.
you okay, Jeff?
Yeah, it's not required, like, you don't need a guardrail there, the drop is not steep enough that it's required. And I know that was one of the areas Dwayne pointed out to
Yeah.
me was
Yeah.
getting pretty bad.
We always took pride in that, you know, a decade ago, in that most of that wood was from trees, oak trees that we cut down, and we'd take it to the sawmill, made saw boards out of it, but it's nice at the time, but it rots.
The only thing about taking it down is that it doesn't happen very often, but on the days when there's big happenings at the Flannery Field, despite the no parking signs, people will just park on the grass.
I know fire and police have actually discussed that, cause that comes up as a topic of conversation usually after, is chainer track meet. But it's kind of an after the fact of, oh, everybody was parked there again, like we need to make sure not to allow them to do that, so if somebody could give me a heads up when that actually is.
May 6th,
Next weekend.
everything's May 6th.
But it's
Not
not
Cinco
so
de
much
Mayo.
the Shaner meet because they have lots of people
Yep.
stationed at the end of High Road on the Shaner meet day that like say you can't drive up High Road. It's other just random days where there's a soccer, track meet and a softball game.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Shaner meet wouldn't be a bad.
Michelle, the 6th is Saturday, Sheena's Friday and Saturday.
Okay, I'll say something to the chief, just, I know we're a little short-staffed right now, but maybe if whoever's on patrol could kind of just swing by and have a nice conversation. Excuse me, please remove your cars from the grass and sign.
Especially if it's gonna be, cause I remember.
The
these
monsoon
folks-
for the next 5 days?
Yeah, and parking on our grass in that area.
Yeah,
We used to actually put up no barricades or no parking signs years ago. I don't know whatever happened to that.
that would get the point across.
You know.
Can't you just put like campaign style signs that you can just stick in when we know there's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
plastic things, just stick them
Yeah.
up so people like can't quite park there. It's
Yeah,
not
Have
we-
like
working.
permanent signs with
Yeah,
big
there should be
metal
permanent
poles that
signs.
say
There
no
are.
parking, and then people.
There are,
But that
people
doesn't
drive
work.
around them.
Right,
They just-
Yes,
right.
they
So
park
if you just stick a couple extra in there,
perpendicular.
you know, reminder, ticket, tow, I
Well,
don't know.
the school district just puts up temporary like stakes with yellow
I saw that.
Caution
string, and that, I think, kinda can do a job. I mean, it's not,
If we could put up, what if we put up just the, like sawhorses we do for the street closures
Yeah,
with some
I
no
just-
parking signs?
I just need to know from, well, I know where, but, from
When we
the
do
police
our-
chief, somehow with the police, I don't wanna just randomly do it. I want somebody to tell me where.
When we do our Greek walk tomorrow, we can swing by there afterwards. That would be the Creek walk for the no swimming signs.
do you want me to pack you a picnic?
We're going at 8:30 in the morning.
Did we cover all the spring songs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment out of agenda order?
Technically, no. Public comment is only allowed during public comment. I'm sorry. I can give you my card if you want to contact me after the meeting.
Okay,
This number 6 is more informational. There was a very nice lady. You remember this? I don't remember the exact story. She saw Dwayne, our parks foreman, down at the Stone House, wanted to plant a tree with a plaque. Said, you can't plant a tree with a plaque. You can surely plant a tree. She went right and got the tree. We planted it that day. It just all worked out. And I said, hey, I'll run it by the committee about the plaque, but you're not getting the plaque. So I just want to make it official that we still do not allow plaques with trees, memorial trees. If they truly donate a tree and we'll plant it for them, but no
There's some
plaques.
discussion on that here.
yeah, there was, Dan had something,
There's a park bench.
benches, and,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's something, again, once Greg gets his feet wet, we could certainly bring back to the table for conversation,
Okay.
but that needs to be
Okay.
further developed.
Has to be a uniform.
Yeah, I think where it was left was Dan was working with the company to pick like a specific style of bench and then that would have to be approved by the commission as well as council, and then there's like an online form you can go on and say you wanted to purchase one, you could do so. The idea was, instead of each bench having a plaque on it though, there would be one central location, whether it's the Park Farm, the Stone House, somewhere else, that indicated all of the donors and who they were in honor of.
So maybe when that time comes, we can talk about doing the same for trees,
Yeah.
Well,
trees and benches.
We're all, yes.
why, what is the objection to the plaque at the tree? I mean, not necessarily on the tree.
Right. That goes back to Dr. Kramer, and I always agree with the comment, this place is starting to look like a cemetery. And that was the start of it, and it makes it
Well, there's a bench back there for
His
Edelman.
name.
My
There's one
God.
for,
That was a
for
funny.
Dr. Clymer too.
Yeah.
Yes, there is, that's right.
And
I
it is,
went to that
it
ceremony.
is a maintenance thing between mowers and time, and where it gets damaged, do we
And that
throw it
one,
out, do we replace?
Edelman bench is pretty damaged.
That is getting beat up, yeah. So I think, to my personal opinion is, I think a bench is good if it wants to have a name on it or a centralized place for a name. But a tree, it's just another obstacle to get damaged or to mow around, or 10 years from now, do we replace it or
And
not?
there's
Does
one at the
anybody
circle.
remember
No,
this?
that's just a thing at the circle.
That was for the centennial, yeah. But no, we haven't allowed plaques for tree memorials in a long time.
We'll do centralized. We could just do centralized. Okay, any old business?
You may recall 21, I believe, plans were brought before the Park and Shade Tree Commission regarding the Stonehouse Master Plan and a grant that we were going for. We found out March, I believe, that we got funding from the state to the tune of $400,000 on top of another $60,000 we already had from another grant. So we have $460,000 towards doing the Stonehouse Master Plan, which will involve parking bump in off of Parkside Drive North for ADA parking, reconstruction of all of the access points to the Stone House building itself so that they're ADA compliant, actually meet ADA requirements, reconstruction of all of the paved and currently heaved trails around the pond, basically from Wyomissing Boulevard down to the pool, including the boardwalks and platforms around Old Man Echo, the tennis courts. So we will not be doing that project in-house, it will go out to bid. Likely 2024 because of taking into the 4th of July parade. There's a whole host of things that need to go into the planning of when that work is done, as well as the Stone House has already been rented for multiple dates in 2023 that we've taken money from people and don't want to screw up their rental plans. So stay tuned, more will come on,
This was
Where-
like a multi-phase project, wasn't it?
but it's getting done.
It's getting
all
done
as-
all at
yes.
once.
And actually, the phases that are getting done are just one small portion of the overall city. I mean, there is everything from erosion of the stream bank to removing invasive species to, I mean, if we would've went through with the recommendations of the entire study, you probably would've been looking at close to $2 million. So it was kind of focus on most important first and go from there.
Is there a time limit for when we have to spend the grant money?
Typically within 2 years, but we could always request a time extension, that's not uncommon.
And that's not a problem.
Where is the parking lot on
We just go
Parkside
to
Drive?
23 anyway.
Is that, if looking at the stone house, is it on the left,
If I was looking at the stone house, it would be a little bit to the right,
on the right?
yes.
You're gonna do a parking lot instead of like the angled, or
Yes.
yeah?
It was like a bump in parking lot,
I
so,
know there was like the two discussions of doing like the
For
angled
how many
and
spaces?
I believe it's 9 or 10.
And the ADA is going to cover getting from those spaces to the,
I've had that
just
conversation.
pushing down the hill.
Yeah, right.
I mean, yeah, that was kind of the whole
Yeah,
point,
That was
but,
gonna be us pretty soon.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. Quiet.
I've had that conversation, so since this plan was previously approved by by former council, Park and Shade, Infrastructure, and the Rec Board. Obviously, there's been a quorum of a change on council, so outside of you, Fred, I've had the conversation with the 3 other council members, one of who is sitting here, to explain not just that grant and what the intent behind the plan was, but some others. That's all I have.
But the ADA talks about slope, so it's going to be compliant.
Am I allowed to, if I wanted to mention the
But
spring
just have to
You
switch
go-
back.
you go
Yeah,
back
go
and
back
set
to
it
it.
all back, yeah.
get the right angle. Even though
Yeah.
under new
So-
business, there's no action required,
A lot
it's
more
just an
than that.
FYI.
Large expense.
Isn't that the Wyomissing
Do we
intersection?
maintain that in the winter?
I'm sorry?
Do we maintain all those walks and stairs and stuff in the winter?
No winter maintenance.
I mean, the guys go through and they do plow them, but that's one of the very last things that they do. Once all the streets are done, you know, the sidewalks here for Hall, the library, anywhere else that we own, then they go through some of the trails if they have time. But by that time, it's usually an icy, frozen, cliff-printed mess.
Any new business?
Just an FYI, possibly late this year and into 2024, Spring Township has a sewer line that comes down through, if you wanna call it Jack Rabbit Hill, across Reading Boulevard, down underneath Cambridge Avenue, between the Cambridge Commons Apartments and the high school, down to Evans Avenue at the swimming pool, down Old Mill Road, left at Parkside Drive South, follows the creek all the way down to the end of the borough on Parkside Drive South where we abut the museum property. They're gonna be replacing a sewer interceptor, sewer line of theirs, through a lot of the parkland. And this happened one time 15, 20 years ago. And it'll be a big project and people will be upset for a year or two, but within a period of time after that, you never know it's there. But there'll be some major construction within a year.
Does that mean that the park, those sections of the park get closed while they're under construction?
That'll be the Spring Township and the contractors deal, they understand that there's a lot of pedestrian traffic where they're going, and they're gonna have to control that or do something, you know.
And then the idea is that when they're finished, it looks as,
Well, they'll seed it, and it won't be perfect, just like anything, it won't be perfect, but after it heals, you know. I'm not aware of any major tree removal, although that, you know, we might lose a few trees here and there, but, most of it's seeding, dirt and seed.
any other new business?
Can I just ask if it's possible, because the meetings are so far apart, to get the minutes from the previous meeting sent to us with the agenda for this meeting, just so we can, our brain can sort of recap what happened like 3 or 4 months ago?
And in this case, it's been even longer because there was.
Right, yeah, I'm just like, I don't even remember what we talked about last time. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Also, is there any thought of enlarging the committee so that, you know, if somebody is absent, don't have to cancel it?
I'd have to talk to Chris as to what the state borough code actually says, the number of,
Somewhere I read that it could be up to 9 members.
On the website, it says 9,
Maybe
and I haven't looked again at the ordinance, at the zoning, wherever it is in those bylaws.
so it
It's
wouldn't be
maybe
anywhere on
more.
our website, it would actually be coming out of the state borough code.
Well, our website says up to 9 members.
Ours does.
Our website says up to nine members,
Then that's ultimately a council decision because it's,
but I've been told 5, which is why I'm an
I think there
alternate.
were more, yes.
Yeah, that 9 seemed, there was a time when this was a full table.
I know, there were more, yes.
so that's not my call or really your call to make, that's council's call, and I think ultimately council president. Since the council president is who is responsible for appointing alternates and committee or committee members. So I can certainly talk to him about that.
How many are it now, seven?
Sounds like 5.
There's 5, and then I'm an alternate, and I was told a couple of times I brought up that it says 9 on the website. But I was told, no, it's 5, and I'm listed as an alternate, but again, there's only the 3 of us here.
Well, Nat, who is a member and his term does not expire until the end of 24, does not use email. And
That's right. I remember.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
so he has no email address. I know for a while Rob was actually hand delivering him the agenda, which I'm sorry, I don't have staff time to do. Like, I personally feel like if you are appointed to a committee, there's some
Right.
personal responsibility there to reach out and find out when the meeting dates are and then obtain copies of the agenda if you don't have an email address we can use. So that is not taken place, which is why he's not been to a meeting in quite some time.
I also just haven't seen him. Normally he's a park walker.
Mhm.
Is the commission mandatory under the Borough Code?
I believe so, cause we looked into that.
Yeah.
Can one make a motion under new business to ask council to,
You'd first have to make a motion to amend the agenda, then you'd have to take public comment, and then you could,
That's where he could ask his question.
no, cause
Oh,
it
yeah.
has to be public comment
Yeah.
related
It's
to
on
the
the topic.
agenda item.
It'll take 30
Sorry,
seconds.
don't
Yeah,
make it
right.
It's
easy.
not a big deal.
so I make a motion to amend our agenda
To,
to discuss asking council to investigate and perhaps a large power group committee.
Second.
Chad.
all in favor?
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Now public comment on that topic.
Is there any public comment on that topic? Oh goodness, I have my script up here.
Okay, now you can discuss it.
So now we have to make a motion to add,
Second man.
Well, to make a recommendation to council.
so now I make a motion to recommend,
Council consider increasing the appointed number of members of the Park and Shade Tree Commission to whatever number, 7, 9, however many you want.
to the currently stated, up to 9 as stated on the borough.
So do you want one? That's what, he's complied right now with 7 to 9. Oh, so you're asking for all 9, Bill?
That's up to 9, so right now we
People who
Or
are.
up
Right,
to
but
whatever
you
the
say
bar
you want
code
9.
says.
You want more than we have now, up to 9.
We are being told right now that we're only allowed to have 5, even though the website says 9.
Understood, but are you asking for 7? Are you asking for 8? Are you asking for 9?
You
Well,
can't have an even number.
Well, I
it has to be
understand that.
that.
I'm
Yeah,
just
we're
making the
asking
point.
for,
How many do you want?
well, if we have 5, then you need 3 here. If we have 7, you need 4 here. If we have 9, you need 5 here.
You do, but keep in mind, a council member can always fill in as a voting member of any
Okay.
commission or committee if there's not a quorum.
So you got
And as long as you have a quorum in person, you can have other members attend by phone.
I would say 7,
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
given that we have a little bit of trouble getting people who
You wouldn't have, I don't think you'd have trouble getting a quorum even if you had 9. Because you'd have council members here. We would make a quorum for you.
The thing about going up to 9 is you have 2 more people available, but you only need 1 more seat filled. You know, see what I'm saying? So, you know, you only need 5, but you have 9 available versus 4 and 7. You've got a bigger window to play with,
And you only meet 4 times a year for God's
Right,
sake.
right.
It's not like,
you know. And if we've got 9 and we've got Nate who never comes, we could add some people who do show up to help guarantee a quorum.
So you're inclined to say 9, you've got 7, right?
I thought 7 was reasonable.
you just get more, I don't know how to say, but you get more opinions, more input.
Yeah, more
Yeah,
voices,
more.
we could get more people who have more knowledge on trees.
But as somebody who's been sitting here for, I don't know how many years, it is tough to find people that
Nobody's
commission.
breaking down the door
Yeah,
to the
like-
other commission,
yeah.
that's the problem.
Yes.
So I would go with 7,
Yeah.
and then see where we are, and then take a look at it in a year or 2.
Do you feel okay with that?
Yeah.
So now, I'm going to make a motion to ask council to add 2 more seats to this commission. All those in favor?
You need a
Oh,
second.
anyone want to
Second.
second that?
Second.
Any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Well, I can't vote.
Okay, so that is,
Canada Fish, though.
But they don't need
Yeah,
her
but
for a
you have a
quorum.
quorum, so I can't.
So
If you lacked a quorum, then I could.
Learn something new every day, Jim.
I did, that's something new to me.
it's a good thing I have no interest in politics. Okay, anything else? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Maybe this gentleman would like to speak up, now that the meeting's over with.
Yeah.
It's a maintenance issue, I'll try to grab you.